Do. There it is. Here comes the link. There it is. Okay, so I just added an extra day. Now it's 2 days, and then who knows? It'll end up being it's a whole week long, the whole thing. But it has a whole bunch of different parts. Anyway, so we'll do the air horn, and then we'll get into the big tech news. Does anyone have a big tech news story they want to share before we read the official countdown?
One thing that's not so good, I guess it's part of the tech slump down, is that one of the unicorns out of Africa, the Swivel, if you remember, out of Egypt, the ride hauling company that became 1.5 billion valuation. They laid off like one third of, I think, one third of the 30% or something of their employee, which would work out to be 400 people. And their valuation dropped from there almost to 600 million. So, geez, they mentioned that it's just the impact of what is happening globally. But yeah, that's the big news.
Okay, yeah, they're in good company. The whole world's laying off 30% right now. Um,
And
yeah,
and I have a story or a storylet or
okay,
something. Um,
a novella,
I'm
tech novella.
no, it's more like an anecdote. Um, there's a big advertising campaign in Arizona right now to get Mark Kelly, who is up for reelection, not to back um, SB 2992, I think are the right numbers. It's the antitrust bill for the tech companies. And I started reading it. I didn't finish, but I started reading it. And I realized that it is directed at Google, anyone over $500 billion. So it's Google, Amazon, Apple, um, you know. Anyway, I'm not sure if it's going to pass. It's called the American Innovation and Choice Online Act. So you can look it up.
Okay,
It's the latest bipartisan effort targeting big tech companies for potential antitrust violations.
And
Oh,
Francine, it was actually written initially at a larger market cap, and they must have changed it because like the market caps, like Facebook, declined to where they even Facebook wouldn't be under the law. So
oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
Unless I'm wrong.
No, 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 no. I think you. I mean, whatever the number is, there was an original number. I got to go check Facebook's market cap. I mean, because I think it used to be like a trillion, right? So they wrote it at a larger number,
Oh,
but
right.
and then because of the stock market decline, okay, I think they may have made the number lower because all of a sudden Facebook wouldn't be covered by the law because that's the problem using the market cap, okay, as to cover, the final law. I've never seen that before. Really, I mean, for a statute, it's kind of unheard of.
They want to make sure they get Meta
Well,
underneath
I
it.
understand, and they also they're trying to make sure they don't pick up smaller companies. The problem is, you have a stock market decline, and all of a sudden, no companies in there. They need to figure out a way not using market caps, to define, you know,
Yeah,
to,
Ken, to your point, defining it by market cap, it should be defined by the behavior, right? That's what antitrust is the behavior and impact, right? Is it creating barriers to entry? Is it unfortunately harming consumers versus that's the argument about Amazon, is Amazon harms small retailers and that they're not protected under antitrust? And also the fact that they're addressing this on state level. I mean, maybe they're just so frustrated that it's not being addressed at a federal level, but
no,
to have
that's
it
a
done by
federal law. No,
state.
Fancy's talking about a
What's that?
bill in
Oh,
Congress.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
No, I'm talking about a federal law, but I'm talking about the advertising, that's the grassroots. ish.
Aimed at her U.S. senator from Arizona. That's why.
Aimed at our Democratic senators, saying, "Don't vote for this bill because it'll jeopardize." Listen to this. Don't vote for this bill because it will jeopardize Amazon Prime's guaranteed 2 day. So that's that's the reason they're giving. One of the reasons they're giving in Arizona.
So I think
Uh,
I may have been actually wrong on the trillion, but or maybe not because I'm looking at Facebook's market cap. It's now 523. So and the stock's come back a little bit from the bottom, but so it's already gone under the 500. Billion in the last 30 60 days, and the market declines a little bit more, it'll be under it again. I mean this. I'm telling. I made this point, and
This bill is not going to get passed because
yeah, well.
any vulnerable Democrat can't vote for it, which is Mark Kelly in our state, and um, and the Chamber of Commerce is totally against it. I
Okay.
mean, the National Chamber of Commerce.
Right. I think Meta was very close to a trillion or maybe past a trillion earlier in the year, and then it declined to a little bit less than 500 billion, and then maybe they're back up again now, just a little bit.
Okay. Are we ready for the air horn?
Air horn.
Yes, let's go.
Go for it.
Yes.
Okay. So it's Friday. Happy Friday. Did I miss a May jumping in at the start to wish everybody a happy Friday?
Not yet. She
Okay.
hasn't
Other-
come yet.
Well, on Amay's behalf, happy Friday, everybody. These are your big top tech stories for June 3rd, 2022. Coinbase extends its hiring freeze for as long as this macro environment requires and will, quote, rescind a number of accepted offers, updating new hires by email. Yeah, all tech companies, particularly all the Web3 tech companies, are freezing and taking the opportunity to cut out the weak team members at this very moment. Now's the perfect time to do it. Everyone else is doing it. It's normally a difficult thing to do, to round up all of the weak team members and bury them in a ditch in the back, but now's the perfect opportunity to do exactly that. So why not do that right now? I don't care how good your company is. 5% of them are not, uh, you know, your best. You have 5% who are the top, and then you have a 5% at the bottom that you should probably customarily, reconsider upgrading each year. So you have this year, you have the perfect opportunity to do exactly that, and many, 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 many tech companies are doing that. These freezes and layoffs are hardly newsworthy. That their investors are telling them to do it. So
Every day, Tyler.
Tyler, just
yes,
the question is, I don't understand. Here in the US, I'm hearing everywhere there is so much job, and companies are scrambling to get employees at the same time. So I guess they are non-tech people. I'm just curious because I hear every day the tech laying off, 10 to 30% of their staff. At the same time, US is saying that, in fact, even this morning that I was listening to the news and saying how tight the labor force is here, that companies can hardly find anyone. They're
right.
giving so much incentives to hire. So where is the disconnect?
It's an ongoing process. So companies will always have this attrition that they lose people, especially good ones, to competition normally or other people in the industry. So they're always trying to hire to fill in these people. And by the way, missing or losing a good employee is really bad for like whatever team that you have because it's very hard to find a good fit. Sometimes you have to rehire more than one person. And if the supply, the number of people in the market is limited, then finding good people becomes even more difficult at that point. So This is an ongoing process for all companies. They're always struggling with it. People change with time, and they will move from one place to another. And I believe the U.S. market has been struggling to find good candidates throughout this whole year. I mean, from the beginning of the year, the total number of people filing for unemployment has been historically low. So that means not a lot of people, not a lot of talent in the market. And when that number goes below 5% of the workforce, it becomes very difficult to hire people, especially good people that can fit the position. So it's an ongoing process. It's a struggle for HR everywhere to find good people, find good fit that will help the company grow and be happy in their positions.
So
I'm
That's true.
also wondering that if all these tech people who are being laid off, they can very easily find the job, I guess. Then, if that's what's happening, right? In one extreme, that companies are looking for good talent, like you said. In another extreme, a lot of tech is laying off. So I guess it's maybe a good time that these people are not going to be out of job for long. Hopefully, anyway.
I think the trend is mostly startups and unicorns are laying off more, and it's the older organizations who are hungry for talent. There was this great resignations in the US early this year, and I think the side effect of that is still seen in the US market. And your guess is probably right. It could be tech versus non tech jobs as well.
Well, in the tech industry, what they lay off when they lay off is marketing jobs and jobs that don't have to do with product. And they focus on the product. So I would guess that if you're an engineer, you're okay. And if you're a marketing person, you're not.
yeah, engineers for sure are worth their weight in gold. And to that point, BB found a headline just now from CNET that says Google is now backing down on office demands as contractors threaten to strike, is what it says. Google Maps team members, contractors were given a 90-day extension on returning to the office. Yeah, because Google can't risk them saying, you know what, I don't actually feel like going back to the office. I'm just going to go work at Stripe or Twitter or some one of these, Spotify, one of these other companies that allow me to work from anywhere, and wait until they find out they get $100,000 tax discount if they work outside of the U.S. I can't. I mean, companies must be shitting themselves over the idea that their team members are going to find that out. So, because Americans don't seem to know that, it's called the foreign earned tax income uh, credit. I think they call it credit.
You know,
If you
my
don't mind, I have
daughter works outside the US and she pays taxes in both California and the
Yeah.
UK.
Yes, you still pay taxes, but you get your first $100,000 of income is tax free. Go ahead, Joe.
But Tyler,
that
does
was
that
an
mean
Obama
that
thing.
that depends on the source of income, right? If the
True,
source
but
of income is from the US and you are an American, I don't think you can run away.
true. They call it a foreign earned income tax credit. I don't think it matters. I think even if it's, I don't think it matters. I think you can work for a U.S. company, and as long as you're outside of the U.S., you qualify for that tax credit.
Nope,
Um,
my
not
daughter
all
does
companies.
not.
Hmm.
Source
I
of
think
Tyler,
income.
I
if I
think
may
it,
say something quick.
I think it matters how many days you are out of the US because we have been out. And I think if we are earning 11 months, if we're outside of the US 11 months out of 12, then they don't tax us. I mean, we still file taxes, but we don't get that much taxes on that income. But when COVID hit and then we were here more than a month out of the year, we had to pay the full tax. So I think they calculate the dates.
I think the question is, who paid you? What company paid you, right? I mean, the U.S. company paid you, so even you're at foreign countries, you still pay the same tax as you are in the U.S. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, the employer was a US based company, actually DC based company. I don't think it matters. In Canada, I am also Canadian. In Canada, if you get paid, I got paid, I think, by a Canadian, actually government, entity. There was no way they taxed me as if I was in Canada. They called it, I think, presumed residence. So that I had no choice, that it was fully they will tax you on it. It doesn't matter where you earn it, it doesn't matter how much you are out. And that's why now I declared myself fully non-resident, but they still tax me flat foreign tax. So the Canadian is quite different. What the source is, if Canadian company source or things like that, it's a bit complicated because they charge you per citizenship, not residence. But the U.S. for us has been per residence. But it also matters how many days our residence was outside of the U.S.
It seems to. I'm reading the IRS website on the page about foreign earned income, and it doesn't clearly specify. It says what it's not is it doesn't include pay for services conducted in international waters. So you you can't be doing it from a boat ostensibly. That's funny.
So, Tyler, I just looked it up, and from what I read, it doesn't matter whether the employer is an American company or not. You can still claim it if you're an American working overseas,
Right.
simply because as an American, the IRS views your global income, no matter how, where you get it, as taxable generally.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, next up is the second biggest story, which is the Wall Street Journal says they have sources that it was the top story yesterday that Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook, is departing. And now the Wall Street Journal says they have sources that Sandberg left Facebook feeling burned out and amid an internal probe into her activities, including using corporate resources to plan her wedding. One of the most powerful executives became increasingly burned out and disconnected from the mega business she was instrumental in building. Casey Newton tweets that he says Facebook paid Cheryl $35 million last year. You think they care if she asked her assistant to call wedding venues or whatever? Can't imagine that conversation went much further than, hey, knock it off. Yeah, what kind of resources is she using to plan her wedding? What kind of Facebook resources is she using other than her assistant, ostensibly? A designer, perhaps?
Facebook satellite.
Yeah, but I mean, what sort of Facebook resources would she be abusing to plan her wedding exactly? And considering she makes $35 million a year, I'm sure whatever resources she's using is relatively minor to that. So anyway,
The phone?
yeah, her phone. Yeah, exactly right. The fax machine. The next is from CoinDesk that the New York State Senate passes a bill that would ban crypto mining operations powered by carbon-based sources for 2 years. I love that. Good luck enforcing it, but I love it. Governor now needs to sign bill or veto it. The state assembly already passed a bill which would bar new mining operations powered by carbon-based energy sources for 2 years. That would be very interesting if countries got together and said, hey, we're all for you mining Bitcoin or whatever, but not from carbon-based sources. And then what that would do is it would make Bitcoin green very quickly, and other coins as well. Ostensibly, the Bitcoining mining community should get together and do that. It would neutralize the argument that it's not green, first of all, and it would go one step further. It would be like, hey, it's greener than any other financial instrument or solution out there. It's carbon neutral. Even better if they could figure out a way to make it carbon negative. And then you've got all the environmentalists would ostensibly have to jump on board, or they could be painted as hypocrites. Which, my God, that's precisely what the value, signaling crowd is sensitive too.
If you can somehow leverage the heat that comes off the miners, like North Vancouver uses it to partially heat parts of the city. In fact, a few cities around the world have kind of adopted this to heat water, make sure, for example, the roads don't get icy. Hey, these crypto miners keep creating all this heat. If we can do that sustainably, then the arguments against cryptocurrency very quickly fade away. Which I think the city example is my favorite one. I would have never even thought of using it to heat water, but it's such a natural use case.
Next up, Microsoft releases 4 principles recognizing its employees' rights to organize. Brad Smith promises an open and constructive approach to unions, conceding that the rise of labor unions in tech may ultimately reach its own business. Microsoft released a new set of 4 principles about their desire to potentially unionize. Our employees do not need to organize to have a dialogue with Microsoft leaders, but we also recognize the workplace is changing. That's why we are sharing principles to guide our approach with labor organizations. And here they are, directly from the Microsoft blog. Our employees will never need to organize to have a dialogue with Microsoft leaders. Here are the 4 principles. Number 1, we believe in the importance of listening to our employees' concerns. And then it has a spiel about that you can make up on your own. Number 2, we recognize that employees have a legal right to choose whether to form or join a union. Number 3, we are committed to creative and collaborative approaches with unions when employees wish to exercise their rights, and Microsoft is presented with a specific unionization proposal. Number 4, building on our global labor experiences, we are dedicated to maintaining close relationship and shared partnership with our employees, including those represented by a union. So, yeah, the unions are salivating at the idea of getting 1 or 2% of all of that. Holy cow, sweet, sweet, juicy juice. Oh my God. I mean, we just covered yesterday that the average salary at Facebook and Google is $300,000 per person. Technically the median, not average, but close enough for napkin math here. 300,000 times, Jesus. If you could unionize the Google team members or the Apple team members, or just eye-watering amount of money that the unions could make from this. This is like the
Well,
biggest get in the history of unions if they manage to pull something like this off.
yeah, but Tyler, why would the employees actually want to take a cut from their pay to pay the union?
Right.
If it's going,
Because it's full of young people who don't want to go back to the office.
yeah, I understand, but at the same time, if they're getting paid well, most people will be like, I don't want to be in a union. I'm already making good money, so I don't want to pay anybody 1 additional%. I'm already paying a lot in taxes, and it depends on what's this union going to do for me that the company is not already doing.
One interesting dynamic could be the whole um, in the woke issue could play into it. For example, because this is already, you're seeing Netflix had a protest where the woke Netflix team members had a protest that they want to ban Dave Chappelle. Spotify team members are trying to ban Joe Rogan. You have people trying to influence their personal values into their company, their tech companies. And then you're starting to see some interesting struggle there. So what happens if the unions themselves, what if there's a woke union who says, hey, Spotify, you do this or the entire company shuts down next week, rather than just, the 5% who identify as woke, for example.
So one thing that unions will hold out as a carrot to get even well compensated employees to join. Potentially, this can happen given what's going on in the market. Is that a lot of unionized employees have what are called defined benefit pension plans or traditional pensions that pay you based on some multiple of your salary in your last year and aren't dependent on stock market returns directly. And so as people's 401ks are getting hit, I could see that a union could, approach those kind of employees and said, if you join us, we're going to negotiate and get you a traditional pension, like a lot of unions have. My concern as a public policy issue there is that, without getting into the weeds in this room, is that there is really no way to actually really fund traditional defined benefit plans outside of government, like if you're a public employee, without ultimately having a problem, because nobody's smart enough to pick interest rates and stock market returns for 30 years. So if you look at the history of these private pension, these defined benefit plans in other industries like airlines and steel, automobile, whatever, when those industries run into trouble, those traditional pension plans, become such a burden. It's very often, helps forces the companies into bankruptcy. It's that's why a lot of companies got rid of them, because they become a real problem. So, but I can see them, the unions, approaching employees and saying, "Hey, we'll get you one of those." I mean, and so anyway, I'll just leave that there.
Tyler, I have a question. Like, for example, in Singapore, usually only the blue collars are eligible to join the union. And then in Japan, if you're above a certain grade, you are also not eligible to be joining the union. How about in US? Because just now you're saying that even if a 300,000 K engineer can even join the union, that is very strange, right? Because I mean, those people are definitely intelligent enough to fight for their own rights, right? Why do they need a
That's the new thing. That's the new thing. It's that these 300K people are actually getting unionized, and that's I remember, there was a rule against that, having any unions for people in the tech world, and the only people who were exempt from that were telecom workers who were actually laying down the wires.
blue
Uh,
collars?
but otherwise, everybody was not allowed to be in a union. Now that is changing, so it's going to be interesting.
Changing because of the law, or
No,
Because
I think it's generational. Here's a article I just pinned to the top of the room from CNBC to yesterday. It says Amazon, Starbucks, Apple union push is capturing what a majority of all American workers now say they want. So this should answer your question, Cheryl. 3 points. Number one, a majority of American workers support more unionization inside their own companies, according to CNBC survey. Number two, worker rights are not a partisan issue, with almost half of Republicans voicing support for unions. Number three, actual union membership remains low, and win election wins are scarce, and it will take sustained public, worker, and investor pressure to cement structural changes in the relationship between labor and management. And
okay, so
on a related note, 3 Starbuckses just voted to unionize out of, I don't know, what is there, 12,000 of them or something like that. So
yeah,
it is what it is. But
but
here's my,
Tyler, the question is,
yeah,
Amazon, Starbucks, and Apple, they have a lot of retail people, right? I mean, those people who work in the warehouses, so they are considered low paid, right?
right,
So it's okay for them to unionize because they are not highly regarded in the company, even putting on so much hours. That means they're using more of their labor work rather than their brain work, right?
right,
So yeah, so I mean, I didn't read the article, so I don't know what other companies are listed. But according to this article, these three companies has many blue collars, right?
yep,
Yeah.
yep. Well, I have to imagine that Cafe X, which is the fully autonomous robotic barista,
Robot barista.
yeah, like the one in Tokyo, Robarista, right? Uh,
Yeah, Ella.
yes.
Ella.
And there's the American version, which is called Cafe X, which, by the way, just opened in Dubai. And they must be rubbing their hands over Starbucks unionizing, by the way. Just absolutely thrilled. Think of this for a second. First of all, the unionization will likely lead to higher salaries. That would be characteristic of what ends up happening with labor, negotiations. And that is going to accelerate the transition to a autonomy and robotics, and these robotics and autonomous companies are absolutely in favor of everything being unionized, because the fully autonomous roboticized thing, until somebody figures out how to unionize a bunch of fucking robots, um, good luck with that. I don't know how that's going to work, because Amazon is all. There was a separate article today about a new, was it? It was either Amazon or Walmart automated warehouse. Somebody tweeted. I'll find it. That just came out today. I think it was Walmart. New automated Walmart automated warehouse. There it is. Is Google? Are you listening to me, Google? You are. You sneaky. Yeah. Walmart and Symbiotic expand regional distribution center. Automated. Walmart, Canada's first automated fulfillment center. Yeah. Well, here it comes. So yeah, go ahead and unionize it, idiots. You're just gonna quicken your own demise, is what this. I mean, that's fine. You'll get paid a little bit more for for the short time you have left. I mean, your days are numbered anyways. But these robotics companies are just loving this, absolutely loving this. So the next big story is that GM's Cruise, a fully autonomous car, no less. So I wonder if the taxi cab drivers are unionizing. GM's Cruise secures a permit to charge fares for its driverless robo-taxi service in San Francisco, which will operate from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. on select streets. Cruise, the autonomous vehicle unit of General Motors, has finally been given the green light to start charging fares for its driverless robo-taxi service in San Francisco. I don't make up the sequence of these articles. That was a pure juice, super ironic coincidence. So, by the way, do you think that the unionization efforts of Uber and Lyft drivers played some kind of role in funding of Cruise? You better fucking believe it. Absolutely. This got accelerated. Cruise is now on the streets faster than it ordinarily would have, because of the momentum to try and pass legislation to make Uber drivers and Lyft drivers employees. No question
Yeah,
about
I
it.
brought this up because I saw a trend beginning in California. I'm hearing New York is also having the discussion. I'm thinking Uber and Lyft will have to find ways to go around some of these new policies that are being discussed. And there are options out there. So I don't think that gig workers will become employees. I think that they will find themselves jobless.
Well, it's not a coincidence that they're doing this in California, in the same state that had the whole um, what's the word again, Ken? When you proposition to
Piloted.
yeah. Well, my point is,
The initiative and referendum process. Yeah, that's what
yeah,
you're talking about.
right. Well, the same states that are going to try and make Uber and Lyft drivers and delivery people employees are the same states that are going to get these rolled out to first. In a very juicy irony. So the next article, also related, from Mark Gurman from Bloomberg. He says he's got sources that Apple plans to improve retail staff schedules, raising minimum hours between shifts from 10 to 12. No work for more than 5 days in a row and more. Apple has agreed to make work schedules at its retail stores more flexible, according to employees with knowledge of the plans. Right. Until they essentially automate out a lot of you in the stores, which I have to imagine the body counts per square meter in Apple stores are constantly dropping. Like, that's precisely in line with these reasons. The Washington Post is reporting that Taylor Lorenz, no less, from the Washington Post, says influencers who focused on the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial made thousands of dollars through platform incentives shaping public opinion in the process. Oh, so now you're opposed to shaping public opinion about a trial? What about the Kyle Rittenhouse case? Seems like people, it seems like some folks get bent out of shape about shaping public opinion and the court of public opinion the when the jury decision goes against their wishes, and they start calling out, "Oh, it's not these are no longer fair trials because the court of public opinion was shaping everything behind the scenes." And da, da, da. It's like, yeah, you're gonna lean on that when it doesn't go in your favor. But it's not that
It sounds like they're making the point that the influencers are making money from
yeah,
the event.
yeah. Why wouldn't they? It's
Right.
click.
So
It's
therefore, you've got this. You're seeing the confluence of commerce and information,
yeah,
and they're
like
just
that isn't
watching it
like that isn't
the same way it happened in the election. So
that's
it's
just
just a different
pure
level.
it's just pure envy. That's the Washington Post's main game, is making money out of dramas like this. How dare you influencers start cutting in on our turf, should be the headline. That's our
The
racket.
attention, the attention economy.
Yeah. How dare the influencers start making money on anything other than photos of their asses and start doing it based on, the drama of du jour. That's what our job as mainstream media is, to milk the teats of the drama du jour. How dare the influencers get in on this game? Yeah, it's changing, and there is the other point about the lawsuits, which is the big high profile lawsuits in the age of TikTok is a new interesting phenomena. It's quite an interesting additional third screen experience. So, the next one is Atlassian warns users to restrict internet access to its Confluent software or disable it in light of an unpatched critical flaw actively under attack. Okay. Sensor Tower, which provides a whole bunch of data about apps and app usage and downloads, says that daily downloads needed for an app to hit number one in the App Store. Oh boy, I see a chance for our favorite show, Tech News Jeopardy! According to Sensor Tower, how many daily downloads are needed for an app to hit number one in the US App Store?
50
5
billion.
million.
Daily downloads. How many
You
downloads
said
per
daily.
day do you need to have the number one?
200,000.
25,000.
2 million.
5 billion.
150,000.
Yeah, more likely.
Sharon wins it with 156,000.
Thank you, Messi, for not coming off on mute. I feel honored.
So we'll put an asterisk on your win that Messi didn't unmute. So the other interesting data point is that back in 2019, just 3 short years ago, you needed to have 114,000 daily downloads to be number one. Android apps need only 56,000, which is down from 83,000 back in 2019. That's really weird. They went the opposite direction.
Yes,
Because of
and
the
there are
progressive
a
web
lot
apps.
more Android phone than iPhone,
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was
right?
thinking a lot more competition.
Wow, wow.
People
Bloomberg
don't
says
want to download apps anymore, right? I mean, ultimately, the app era is moving away. People want less apps and more progressive web apps that are web based back on the internet.
Yeah, daily numbers is not that important anymore, right? Because you see the overall download number.
okay, here we go. Next up is internet censorship tech provider called Sandvine says it is pulling out of Russia. Wow, were they the ones providing the Russian internet censorship? That would be very interesting if so. Internal records show it had deals with 2 ISPs, including Russia's second largest. Oh, it sounds like it is. That could be really interesting. The next is that Masayoshi-san from SoftBank, who's one of the biggest tech investors in the world, easily, and certainly in Asia, uh, used SoftBank's Vision Fund, that's his fund, to build a society mediated by AI, but failed as he invested in firms with exploitive technology, not explorative. Say what? So Masa used SoftBank's Vision Fund to build a society mediated by AI. What?
Turns out the bots went bad. Sounds like the summary for that one.
Masayoshi-san used SoftBank and its $100 billion Vision Fund to remake the world in its image. It's not a pleasant picture. This person really missed their calling as a creative writer. It sounds like they're writing a sci-fi dystopian novel here. That this isn't really how SoftBank or any VC really works. And I know because the startup I was at, I flew to Tokyo to meet with Masa in his headquarters, in his office for multiple days in a row. We nearly did a joint venture with Masa. He shared his vision, his 300-year vision, and I have the feeling this journalist has not had that luxury to really have a deep heart-to-heart with Masa about what he really thinks. And so anyway, the article goes on it's really weird, poetic novel writing, creative sci-fi. Oh, they do mention the 300-year investment strategy down here at the very bottom of the article. It says, for years, Sun has talked about his vision for a 300-year investment strategy to anyone who has listened, and up until around late 2020, it sounded like a fairy tale because it was one. It was then that the stars aligned for SoftBank to retake its place at the center of the tech bubbles it had helped nurture. The Vision Fund investments were skyrocketing in valuations. So how did SoftBank mount such an impressive comeback in 2020? Anyway, a very, 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 very long article because the guy clearly wants to write a book on the topic. And it's a really bizarre take on a VC and their thesis. Anyway, have fun with that one. Did we pin that to the top of the room, Cheryl? We did. How one billionaire with 300-year plan fueled the popping tech bubble. Yep, that's what it says. The tech bubble may finally be bursting, though it may be more accurate to refer to it as a foam of tech bubbles, an advertising tech bubble, a pandemic-boosted tech bubble, a cryptocurrency bubble, a bubble of firms that style themselves as tech firms when they aren't, a profitless growth tech bubble. The list of assets and corporations with inflated values is endless. Some are large, others old, and others still are more fragile than the rest, but all of them are part of the same froth that attracts investors who pin their hopes on their ascendance. And that the past 5 years, the largest contributor to that froth has arguably been Masayoshi Son. Okay, yeah, well, it's interesting to single him out if you're accusing the whole industry of kind of corroborating in this. Anyway, so the next big story is that the
I mean,
CFTC.
it sounds like the story is akin to the Japanese buying that Van Gogh and or Van Gogh for Americans, that marked the end of the '80s boom. I think it's just sort of one of those stories, but it is true that that bubble started back in 1999, 2000. So it's been a 22-year bubble. He's just marking the top, it seems.
The social cost. So the author did a tweet saying, "I wrote about the rise and fall of SoftBank, the $100 billion Vision Fund, the tech bubbles and monopolies it tried to create, and the social cost of all that capital being deployed to prop up companies that have no business existing."
predicated on the idea that these businesses were acquiring network effects that were going to be exploited down the track, and therefore, predicated for growth rather than for Benjamin Graham's saying, the market is a voting machine, and in the long term, a weighing machine. He's basically saying that he doesn't believe that these companies will ever get to be a weighing machine.
Okay. So the next one is that the CFTC sues Gemini, alleging that the crypto exchange's staff misled the federal regulator during Gemini's 2017 effort to launch Bitcoin futures contracts. Gemini partnered with the CBOE to try and launch what would have been the nation's first Bitcoin futures contracts. And now the CFTC is suing Gemini. And that's the Winklevoss twins, hence the name Gemini, the twins. Yes. And
Yeah, so no shit that the CFTC and the regulators in general don't want to see further institutionalization of Bitcoin. Makes sense.
so Tyler Winklevoss, one of the two twins, says nuts on Twitter. We obviously disagree with this. We'll respond more fully when I have a minute. Busy building at the moment. Okay, well, we'll that's just the beginning of that drama. We'll see how that shakes out. Twitter says the 30-day waiting period for federal antitrust regulators to block Elon Musk's proposed $44 billion acquisition has ended. So they can no longer block it, I guess.
It's basically putting the pressure on Musk and saying, okay, they didn't object, now well.
Right. Are we dancing or not? The next is a report highlights security risks in something called Meeting Owl, a video conference device used by governments and colleges, including exposure of its pro-users' data. Indian edtech startup struggle post-pandemic. I think all of India is struggling, perhaps more than anyone, as a result of this kind of cyber bubble crash or whatever you want to call it. TechCrunch says they have sources that
Just think about how difficult those unicorns are going to be to finance. So, when you think about the average revenue per user that the Indian apps are going to have, because their marketplace doesn't have the type of money, they have like 1/50th of the capital, right, to make money, and they've got these multi-billion-dollar valuations. They are really going to have to go through some cram downs to make that make sense in the next era.
Okay. What else do we have here, Cheryl? A delivery company called Yummy, a transportation super app in Latin America, raises 47 million. Spotify's white noise podcasters are making thousands of dollars per month creating soothing sounds, a growing market that major networks have yet to explore. Podcasts of white noise. Yeah, sleeping aids. Sleeping is big business, yeah. Meta announces a broad AI reorganization internally. Okay. Square plans to roll out support for Apple's new Tap to Pay on iPhone feature in its Square point of sale app. That's cool. So now, yeah. Later 2022. Yeah, I've forgotten about that. Apple's big plans, which no doubt they'll mention. I believe, does WWDC start on Monday, the 6th? I think it does. So when we join next time on Monday, it will be WWDC for the whole week. No doubt they're going to be jumping up and down about that point. The new ability for everybody to collect payments from anybody through their iPhone, in person or otherwise. You said everyone has a merchant account, as it used to be called. Everyone can accept credit cards now. Potentially a game changer, especially for lemonade stands, of all things. So, Tiger Global investor letter shows its fund dropped 14% in May due to losses in tech stocks and markdowns in private. I'm surprised it's not a lot more, honestly. Pushing its 2022 losses to 52%. So, and the year's only half over. So, those are your big boring headlines for today, June 3rd.
How about this one from Bloomberg? FEC data. The crypto sector's political donations passed 26.3 million in 2021 and Q1 2022, outpacing donations from big tech, drug makers, and the defense industry.
Okay.
Lobbyists.
And Facebook is rumored to be developing a basic ad product that doesn't rely on anonymized data from its users and instead uses metrics like engagement and video views. Okay, there we go. Now we go into the tweets. And does anyone have a tweet that they found since we met last time that they want to make sure we touch on? Going once?
It's a non-tech tweet. There's a company in Queens, New York, that just printed a 3D ear to deal with deformities in ear loss. It was a nice article. I tweeted that to you yesterday.
Okay. All right. Um, Here we go. The first one I have today is from Saudamini that WhatsApp is testing filter to quickly view unread chats. Okay, big whoop. I'm surprised it didn't have that already, honestly. But by the way, I mean the biggest news in WhatsApp is WhatsApp had a big event about 2 weeks ago where they announced the APIs for WhatsApp so that all apps can now embed WhatsApp as a communication layer in their apps. That's freaking fantastic. That's holy smokes, incredibly cool. And they added a whole bunch of paid features for WhatsApp business accounts, which are incredibly cool. And no doubt they will build up the automated bot responses for all the business apps. That's going to be massive. As somebody who built a startup on consumer to business chatting as a form of communication, let me tell you, that's going to be crazy, crazy big opportunity there for WhatsApp. So now basically every business can have nearly a free chatbot to answer customer questions for, I don't know, $5 a month. Kind of crazy. Next is, and by the way, that it'll also have products built into the app. It already does, in fact. I use WhatsApp Business, and I have you have a catalog of products that you can sell inside of your WhatsApp Business account to your customers. So here it comes, everybody. This is going to be the e-commerceification of WhatsApp in a very big way. It's going to start eating part of the internet, like e-commerce. The next is that Instagram increases its Reels duration, adds new features, etc. Well, it has to, because it has to stay up with a feature parity with TikTok. And the next is that Facebook top tech firms warn Indian cybersecurity rules may create fear. The VPN service provider ExpressVPN removed its servers from India on Thursday after refusing to limit internet freedoms. Yeah, all the big tech companies are very, very nervous about Mr. Modi and his demands that he's going to have for them. And as they should be. And they're going to have to figure out if they want access to that incredibly, insanely lucrative market of 1 billion folks. All they'll have to do is sell their souls. And some will and some won't. The next, we covered already, California regulators approve state's first fleet of robotic taxis. They're here. They're charging money. It's happening. We can stop with the silly debate about when this will happen. The answer is June 2nd, 2020. There are robotaxi services that now charge money with no human driver in the car. This is going to scale out faster than I think. This is a hotly debated issue: is how fast this will become ubiquitous. I think it will happen faster than most people assume. But anyway, the next
It's going to
is,
depend on lawsuits.
yes, exactly right about that.
It all
Um,
comes down to how many people die, right? Because they're deploying it now from 10 p.m. to like 6 a.m. and then they'll look and see basically how many
On
deaths were
selected
caused by
routes.
this, and then they'll scale it out based on that. But the backlash will certainly be, when you have five citizens that get run over by a taxi, it's going to stall this stuff, stall out the movement for for several, I would say several months, if not years.
The law needs to be established. Who's going to be liable? The software, the hardware, the rider, the manufacturer. This is where does the liability sit?
the hacker,
Bingo.
who is the taxi lobby. I just answered that one for you. Especially when they watch out for that headline. Autonomous taxi runs into a crowd. Then 1 week later, turned out the vehicle was hacked. Then a month later, it's revealed that the hackers have connections to the taxi lobby.
I mean, just look at Tesla's own history with full FSD, with the self-driving and the legal shenanigans that have been going on there, including settlements under NDA in order to not expose the dangers of the automatic driving facility. This is normal corporate bullshit.
South Korean users file police complaint against Google CEO. A coalition of consumers on Friday filed a police case against Google's top executives, including the CEO. Why? Good question. Let's find out. It says, for the tech giant's in-app billing system that forces domestic app developers to pay hefty commissions. Yeah, there you go. That the app developers are now suing Google because they're not complying with the government's ruling. This is wild. According to the Korean Times, Citizens United for the Consumer Sovereignty has filed a complaint against Google CEO, Google Korea CEO, Google Asia Pacific president at the Gangnam police station in Seoul for allegedly violating the country's Telecommunications Business Act. Quote, the enforcement of Google's in-app payment policy has raised costs, burdening consumers and damaging creators. A representative for the consumer groups was quoted as saying, quote, app developers have no choice but to accept the request from Google, which accounts for 74.6% of the App Store market share. South Korean companies have raised charges for paid content services on Google as the US tech giant prepares to remove apps with external payment links circumventing Google's in-app payment system. Google started enforcing the controversial billing system in Korea from June 1, so 48 hours ago. Currently, many
Well,
applications. Yeah.
it's not like we didn't know that the whole idea is for the platforms to become payments and for those payment systems to act on behalf of the government. I mean, this has been fully flagged, and people are now realizing that they need to, advocate that they should be able to use these tools, a la the Apple suit, the Epic suit, and that they are gouging at all of the creators and all the developers, and those developers will have to realize that they will need to move to the open web, where they will be able to charge and for their services and not have to pay the middleman who is charging them egregiously.
Okay. Next up, Pinterest acquires an AI shopping startup because Pinterest wants to get into the whole e-commerce game. So you can buy and you can really you can purchase anything that you see on Pinterest. And of course, that's crazy huge potential there as an e-commerce platform. Photo sharing social media platform Pinterest has acquired AI-powered shopping startup for an undisclosed sum. And the next
That
is,
would be interesting.
yeah, the next is
It's
from,
where they're all going, right? It's the
yeah,
confluence of messaging, shopping, AI, and all the data that informs them how to send that shopping directly to you or that trend directly to you based on your preferences using AI. So the only question is, why would the consumer want to go and have all these separate different interfaces when they could have one interface that would be the next version of the web that would be able to do all of this natively without needing the platform and without needing the applications, and just develop applications for the web, like progressive web applications. That's the technology that has to come. And all the payment stuff becomes powered by various different systems, whether it's the Eastern system, the WeChat offers, or the Western system that WhatsApp offers, or the open web system that, put the name of the project in the place that would offer the open web version. That's where we're going.
Hey Tyler, Cheryl just pinned something to the top that I actually had tweeted out a couple of days ago, and I asked her in the back channel, "Did we ever cover this?" And she said no. So I thought this was an important story. By the way, are you even seeing my tweets? Because a lot of times you're not bringing them up, and I'm thinking maybe because of the time difference, they're at the bottom of a pile always. Because
are
when
you,
I tweet them out,
you're
what?
tagging TNATW?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
might be the time of day that you're doing them.
I know that. That's what I'm
He's
thinking. Like
censoring
they're at
you,
the
Ken.
bottom of a
He's
pile. Yeah.
censoring you. He's
It,
No,
censoring you
no,
on purpose. You need to
no,
go to
because
the
there's a big
Texas
time
Supreme
difference.
Court.
are you doing them
Yeah.
shortly after this room closes?
No, I'm doing them like sometimes late at night, my time, because I don't know what time that is. West Coast U.S. time. I don't know what time that is in Thailand.
Yeah.
So no, usually not after this room closes. But I am figuring that they're at the bottom of a barrel somewhere. In a queue.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
I'm going.
Samsung is
I'm going chronologically from the time the room opens.
right. So somebody that's closer to your time zone is going to have the stuff
The closer
closer
the
to the top of your list. Yeah.
closer the tweet happens to the time the room opens,
Yeah,
that
that's why you don't see mine because mine's about maybe the furthest distance from the time the room opens.
right.
Okay, so okay. Anyway, which is not, I'm not going to change that because I got other things to do in my life. I can't worry about this. But why is the story is why Samsung is being sued over a fundamental Android feature. So I thought that was important because those are that's Samsung's obviously a big cell phone manufacturer, and said Samsung is at the heart of a patent related legal fiasco that covers the Android OS technology capable of predicting how long the battery will last before a device turns off, filed by a patent licensing company named K. Misra LLC. The legal argument submitted before the Dusseldorf Regional Court claims that Samsung infringed on a patent covering battery runtime prediction on its phones running a younger version of Android. The tech, which was originally patented by a Deutsche Research Institute, and there's a Deutsch name of it, which is really, really long. I'm going to
Sounds
skip.
like a
I'll let somebody
patent
else do it.
trolling story.
Yeah, yeah, covers what the legal complaint describes. Okay. Anyway, so that was one story. And there's another story I tweeted out the other day, and again, it's like it's in your pile, or someone can just look at my Twitter account because it's usually there. That the Netflix test cases for password sharing that they're doing in Latin America are not exactly going well. So it might be a while before you see any kind of password sharing enforcement beyond the few countries that they're doing it. And I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
Sharon, you want to share your interesting one?
Oh, the 3D printing.
Yeah.
So this company, as you recalled, we had a lung transplant, a pig lung transplant earlier that failed, a pig's heart rather. And so 3D Bio sort of did something a little bit different. They didn't disclose a lot of their developing techniques, but they did prepare a 3D ear that then generates more cells over time so that it feels and acts more like an ear. And the interesting part about this is that it was done on a woman from Mexico born with microtia, which is a rare birth defect that can cause some ear loss, but typically it's malformed. The ear then becomes small and malformed. She's had it thus for a while, thus far, and is uh, adapting well to it. So the new ear plant was done back in March, and I'm looking forward to seeing more come out of this biotech firm based out of my neighborhood in Queens, New York. So I'm excited about that. And also, this can potentially rectify the issues we saw with the pig's heart. And that's a changer in terms of organ transplant.
Indeed. Okay. The next one I have is that the EU deal on single mobile charging port, that would be USB-C, everybody, likely June 7th, is set back for Apple. The proposal
Yes.
for a single mobile charging port was first broached by the European Commission more than a decade ago. And is this shaping up to happen on Tuesday? Is it that soon?
This is the best news ever.
Proposal for a single mobile charging port. EU countries and lawmakers are set to agree on a common charging port for their mobile phones, tablets, and headphones on June 7th. That's Tuesday, when they meet to discuss a proposal that has been fiercely criticized by Apple, people familiar with the matter said. The proposal for a single mobile charging port was first brought up. Who cares? The former is you get it. It's going to be USB-C, obviously,
This
and they're
is
going
the best news
Oh, no
ever,
wonder
Tyler.
I
This
heard
is
that Apple was.
amazing.
No wonder I heard that Apple was testing USB-C in its iPhones for 2023.
I've been
to.
waiting for this news since 2007. This is the best news ever, and it's going to be a really wonderful thing for the environment as well, to not have this wastage of using the MFI port anymore. It's get rid of
Cables
all of
and
their
charge.
peripherals. It means that we have one standard that will go into every device, and that is just wonderful news. It's really good news. And fuck Apple.
Yeah, well, because both sides of the cable could be the same as well. So all you just have everything will be USB-C between connecting all devices. It'll make it incredibly simple. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Tuesday. The next is about the Tamagotchi generation. Will future parenthood mean having virtual children? Around 50 years from now, parents can have virtual offspring whom they can cuddle and converse with. These digital children will be far more advanced than humans, is the article. Digital children, digital offspring. So let me pin that one to the. I just tweeted that one. It says parents will be able to interact with their virtual kids in virtual parks, swimming pools, and living rooms.
My NFT baby.
Can you wipe their digital asses? Change their digital diapers?
I'm just curious, is this digital children competing with the pets or with the real children?
Yeah, yeah, good question.
Can you put them on mute when they're crying?
I assume so.
That
Can just switch them off.
Hey Tyler,
It's a
I
perfect
think
child.
we might see a digital queen on Sunday. I hear that the royal carriage will have a virtual queen
Yeah,
in
I
it.
was in the news.
Baby X is an experiment by New Zealand-based company called Soul Machines aimed at humanizing AI. The virtual child's quote-unquote brain is made up of algorithms that deduce what is good and bad. This enables Baby X to learn how to respond to interactions just like a real infant. Its movements and expressions on screen are also devised from the actual movement of babies, according to a report by Analytics Insights.
Yeah, that company, actually, the designer modeled that baby after his own child. And one of the interesting things that he did was map all of the facial muscles to all of the neural circuitry and found that certain loops actually mimic human expression. So when you look at the baby, it kind of mimics your face. You tilt your head, it tilts its head. And there's a lot of neural circuitry that creates that sort of mimicry type behavior especially for newborns. So for me, it's like his real daughter has to compete with the digital daughter for the father's attention. Kind of funny, but very impressive. In fact, I think IBM acquired the company Soul Machines just because of the animation capabilities, and it very much resembles the kind of stuff we see with something like MetaHuman, but that's prearranged. This is naturally emergent from the algorithms, and it just looks creepy. I think the latest version is 5.0, maybe 6.0 is out right now, but really awesome stuff.
Okay. Next up is from the BBC that and it asks the question: could self-driving bicycles change how we use cities? Autonomous cycles that can be summoned to your doorstep may help reduce transport emissions. So that's interesting. So it's like
It's
an
World Bicycle
Tyler,
Day today.
Tyler,
yes.
that sounds like an accident waiting to happen. I mean, here in Netherlands,
No,
they're already putting bikes with up to high kilometer speed, and they've already come out in the news that most of the accidents on the bike paths are not happening from scooters anymore. They're happening from the e-bikes and how fast they're going. So it's an interesting dynamic, but if we're barely able to manage when we're driving the bike, how would the autonomous be able to create the
It's a
prevention of those accidents?
tricycle, I think.
It's a
yeah,
Yeah, it's
it might
bicycle, not a
Use the
scooter.
perfect one.
it might be, but there is a certain element of trying to get to a meeting like in a suit or in something dressy while you're taking the bike. It just doesn't work. You have to
If you have
get some
not
some
been to
clothes for the
Netherlands,
road
But
wait,
and
you're
then
wait, wait.
change
You
there.
have not been to Netherlands.
I know, I
Not been
know,
to
I know,
Netherlands.
but it
They're
can it can
actually
it
handsome on those bikes, and they're so poised in their suits, and they ride with no hands. So it is
yeah, yeah.
possible.
Yeah, if the roads are clean enough and rain drainage and everything works really well and all that good stuff, then maybe in that case it would be worthwhile. But over here in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of people, we are in the capital of cycling in Redmond, Washington, and a lot of people will have their cycling clothes until they get to the office. Many of the buildings will have showers, so they don't, when they go in, they will have an opportunity to, deodorize before they get dressed and then go to their meetings. That's great, but that's a lifestyle that people will actually adapt to. Taking a bike that is completely open is just terrible for trying to get to a meeting where you have to dress up and be a business professional and still make it in without getting someone to splash on you or
Can
something.
I add to
So
that? We're in San Francisco. I am a huge cyclist, and we're in San Francisco where it is a lifestyle choice for people who bike in from either across the
absolutely.
city or even
Why
from
do you have to
Marin.
get
Wait,
dressed up?
wait, hello, can I finish? And fully
Yes.
agree with what Sam said. It's a lifestyle where people cycle into work and change when they get there, and it's a big undertaking if they're going across town. I'm a huge cyclist. I would never cycle to work. It's not part of my lifestyle. I want to show up. I don't want to take a shower when I get there. And if I have to go to a meeting anywhere, and people have to get dressed up, you're not going to go to a meeting in your bike clothes. If you're hardcore enough to actually wear bike clothes and bike into work, I think as people know, it's a bike kit, it's spandex. Biking around in e-bikes or something in between two meetings, maybe if they were conveniently close. Self-driving bikes? Are you kidding me? I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean,
Francine, you have a question?
Well, why wouldn't they? First of all, I don't see that many people dressed up to go to work. And second, why can't they be tricycles?
They are tricycles, at least in the ones that are being used in the UK.
The one I just pinned to the top of the room that the BBC stories about is a tricycle, although it's kind of like a adult tricycle if you look at the photo at the top of the room. The rear wheels are just wide enough to balance the bike, basically. So it kind of looks like a bike from the front and a tricycle. It looks like a bike from the if you're looking from the side, and a tricycle if you're looking at it head on. But the interesting selling point is I have to imagine it is an e-bike because you can summon it to you, so it'll meet you wherever you are. That's benefit number one. and it can go charge itself. Number two, so you don't necessarily have to have them laying around all the time. They ostensibly could be programmed to hide themselves, so you don't have the same problem that you have with the little electric mobility scooters littering all over the sidewalks. These things could go park themselves out of sight, so to speak, in pre-mapped
Yeah,
areas.
it's a good idea, but until we see something like this that is kind of like enclosed or covered, and I don't see that that is a difficult problem to solve. It's just some fiberglass around the little bicycle here in this case, or the electric scooter or whatever, and now you've got yourself some form of transportation that will come to you. It's smart enough. It will keep you nice and clean until you get to your destination, away from the elements. And when you get there, it will go and do its little thing where it will charge itself
If
and
you
all
if
that
you
good
want to
stuff.
see the most likely candidate, you should look at the Citroen Ami, which is €6,000 or €20 a week. Electric vehicle goes, I think, 24 miles an hour and is fully covered, etc. So have a look at that.
Is
It's
it
on
a
sale
single
yesterday.
seater?
Like the Deshavo
It's
Citroen.
it was the idea of the update to the De Chauveau, but it's called the Citroen Ami. It's €20 on the a week, and fully electric, and it's got a range. I want to say about 40 miles, maybe a little bit less.
A question: are these self-driving bikes using the road with the vehicle or on the pedestrian with the people?
Bike lanes.
Bike lanes. So they are not going to be on the road, right? Which will create an hazard for the
Right,
cars, right? And they are not going to bang into pedestrian, right, when they're walking, right?
right.
Okay. Do you need to buy
So the Ami
insurance?
appears to
Do
be
you need to
Oh,
buy insurance when you are a cyclist in the US?
No.
It's known as a
you don't
quadricycle.
have to. You don't
Because there,
have to, but
because there's a lot of accident actually, right, in Singapore and even in Japan. So like hitting old people, or they go too fast and they hit people. So who will cover this?
usually your medical insurance will cover you. But if you hit someone else, I am not entirely sure. But you can buy. You can.
Come on.
There is a way to buy.
In retirement communities in Arizona, we have golf carts, covered golf carts that do that.
Hmm.
Okay. So the next one I have is from Sylvan, that Pegasus software confirmed use by the Netherlands police. The Dutch security service is using controversial hacking software developed by Israeli company NSO Group, known as Pegasus.
What did we say yesterday? What did I say? I said exactly that. It's like the problem is that everyone's using it, and even if they're not using it, they're hacking the same information. So the only way you can be safe is if you don't have it at all.
Apple Search is happening. Rumors suggest Siri will get smarter. Apple Search could be announced at WWDC on Monday. Suggests latest rumors. I don't think.
Hopefully, it's not like Bing.
Yeah, I don't. I think Siri's still a way away from that. If it, I mean, if it does, it'll be a Siri-based search. Yeah, I don't know. There's been rumors of this for a decade, actually.
Well, they do have a decade of data because their contract with Google kind of allows them to see what people are searching. So they do have that kind of advantage, at least from that perspective, about what kind of results people are after. So perhaps that's an opportunity for them to create, a search engine. But the last time I used Google Maps, I never even thought of using Apple Maps. So that never even crossed my mind just because of the amount of information and updating that Google does. It's hard to compete with their data.
The one change since last year, of course, is like all of the ad network ambitions of Apple that continue to increase. And having an ad network goes very, very well with search because now you're able to find out. Apple could apprehend um, all of your search intent that is currently going to Google almost exclusively. Vinay or Francine?
Yeah, I'd like to know how this goes with Apple's privacy branding.
Exactly. It doesn't. And that's
It will.
exactly goes with their financial ambitions, which also don't go with it because they've got total surveillance.
Well, no, but
So
of course, normally, ordinarily, pre Pegasus, Apple would make that one of the high level bullet points of benefits for choosing them over Google. Of course, that would be the default Apple move. However, post Pegasus, if that move's going to be harder to pull off, they're going to have to downplay that particular bullet point.
but at the end of the day, you're exactly right. There is no way that you can move into search without being a surveillance capitalist because that's how you make money. But they're just going to do it so it's so much more tailored. I was listening to a Bitcoin room and they were all raving about Apple Pay. I was like, it's just incredible that these guys don't get it.
Okay, next up from
Hey,
Saudi.
Tyler, I have something to share.
If you
It's
do,
to
turn down your microphone about 40%.
I don't know what's wrong with my microphone. It's usually very low, but sometimes this Surface Duo decides to make the microphone boost up for some reason. Um, Clubhouse has been rolling out this new feature for notifications, where that little bell up top will give you the opportunity to see the activities, and they kind of combine them in such a way that it will show you, like for example, if somebody shared your room or something. And I just got this one on one of my test accounts, and it is ugly, but at the same time, it is extremely useful. Mainly because now you can see, like for example, the room shares, like for this room, you'll have the opportunity to see who shared the room and how much influence this share has was on the room. So you'll see, like for example, like 3 people shared it. You click on the more information, and you'll see how many people were actually responded to that share that person did. And this way, you'll know who's like more influencing the numbers of a specific room. And this is really big because I did not expect Clubhouse to add such a feature to people. So now, for example, I know like for one person did a share, and 102 people have actually clicked on that share that person did, versus another person who did a share and only 5 people clicked on it. So that's very interesting. And
And if you're going to monetize, which is what they want to do, you would want to
yes,
exactly reward people for the reach that they add, and so to each according to his contribution. And
yes,
so it's
exactly,
exactly
exactly.
where we're going with this, is all platforms will do exactly the same thing and
Right.
move towards the quantified self. That's where we're going.
Right, right. So that's a very interesting update. That's a very new ad. And granted, I am telling you, it is the ugliest UI that I've ever seen in the history of Clubhouse. However, it is extremely functional, and it is combining things like, people who have joined or followed you, people who have joined your club, people who have responded to your request to join their club, and people who have shared your room. So that is kind of interesting, and if you want, I can take a screen capture of this. But this is the only version
I'd,
that I've seen so far.
I'd like to know how to find it.
Say again.
How do you find it? Where is it on the app?
It's on the little bell up top, on the top right next to where you have the back channel. Next to it, there is the small bell with the notifications. When you click on that, if you happen to be on version, let me see what's my version now, because I am on the beta testing release. So
Is it Apple?
no, this one is on Android. They said that it's going to be on Android first. It's version
Where's the bell?
25.31. So this was released like 2 days ago, but the feature is not enabled to everybody yet. It's coming out in waves.
So,
So
so only the room owner can see it, or anyone who's been moderator.
no, only the room. So if you're the room owner, you'll see the reshares. If you are a moderator, you will see the things like the room after it's done, the replay. You'll get a notification of the replays, that kind of stuff. So all the notifications that were cluttering all over the place now are actually combined, and I do see a lot of value in what they're doing right now. In fact, when people follow you, now you have the opportunity to follow them back right from the notification bar. This is a new thing. I like this new UI. It's I've heard about it, but this is the first time I see it, and it's only on one of my test accounts. It's not on all my accounts for. I mean, not on like other accounts for Clubhouse.
Okay, very good. So the next
All right.
article, yes, more. Oh, go ahead. Vinay just shared one minute ago about the Ola electric uh, scooter out of India that I'm eagerly awaiting, and it says they're doing high altitude testing in the Himalayas on these fully electric scooters. Looks very cool. And Saudamini found one about how American Express uses credit fraud AI to start a banking product. And Saudamini has another one about a YouTuber who was slapped with more than 500 music copyright claims by Nintendo. And YouTube's TV app will now connect to the one on your phone. And Oregon is.
It's funny. Your channel will be taking off for just 3 copyright violations. What? 500 is what happens when you get 500.
I'm not sure what happens. Yeah, Oregon is shutting down its controversial child welfare AI this month. The algorithm screened families for neglect investigations by state social workers. Okay, and we'll skip that one. Skip that one. Skip that one. I think that the U.S. puts back no support of Taiwan independence statement on fact sheet. Okay,
Yeah, it's like cha-cha dance, two
yeah.
steps forward, one step backward. Yeah.
Tesla reportedly hired a PR firm to monitor employees on Facebook. The mainstream media is really trying to come down on Tesla lately.
No, but seriously, Tesla employees still use Facebook.
The Japan banks on science and tech sectors. Okay. Illinois broadband expansion will create 25,000 jobs. NFT market sees first insider trading case in the U.S. We covered that one. Shanghai reopening creates a $7.5 billion market for COVID tracking. Apple veteran is going to help Disney build its metaverse. Well, you still have to build Apple's metaverse, but that's likely to be the big headlines on Monday for WWDC. And I think that's it for today. So thank you to everybody for another Tech News Around the World. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Happy Friday.
Thanks, Tyler. Happy
I know.
Friday.
Happy
Happy Friday.
weekend.
Do it Monday.
Happy
No, no,
Congratulations.
no.
Friday.
You can't take it back. You can't take it back, Tyler.
And then
He's got a
Tyler
working
was waving
weekend.
your happy Friday.